Yes, Bhargav. Hello, Bhargav. Bhargav.
Hello, sir. Are you able to listen?
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you, sir.
Okay. So are we?
Yeah. Everyone, I think they'll be adding. So shall we start, sir?
Should we wait?
I think it's 6:02, sir, already. So I'll introduce you and slowly we can start. They'll come and join.
No issue. Yeah.
So good evening, friends. Welcome back to our webinar series. Today we are welcoming Dr. Sean Joseph. He has done his MBBS from Calicut Government Medical College. Following that, he did MS from BJ Medical College, Ahmedabad. And he has done his MCH from Amrita Institute of Medical Sciences, Kochi. He was also trained at Tata Memorial Hospital, Bombay. He has a very good experience in advanced surgery for cancer of larynx, which involves a complex surgical resection and microvascular reconstruction to preserve voice, which was actually done for the first time in India under his leadership in Lakeshore Hospital. Currently, he is the director of head and neck services in that hospital. And his areas of expertise and interests are minimally invasive surgeries of larynx and skull base. So with those words, let's go into the discussion. I'll hand over the mic to you, sir, so you can continue. I'll share your screen.
Yeah. So good evening, everyone.
Sir, are you able to share see the screen?
Yeah, I'm able to see the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So can we start now?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Thank you, Bhargav, for that introduction. And good evening, everyone. And thanks for joining the webinar. So yesterday we had a talk about various techniques of partial laryngectomy, conventional partial laryngectomy. So we know that reconstruction following partial resection of larynx and trachea is among the most challenging restoration surgeries in the body. This is because it involves not just replacement of tissue, like in other head and neck sites. If it's an oral cavity, you can replace it with the tissue, but you don't need to preserve the function. But this particular reconstruction involves functional areas like cricoarytenoid unit, glottis, pharynx, all of which should work synchronously to maintain the important functions of voice, airway protection, and swallowing. So today we'll be going through the various laryngeal and tracheal reconstruction techniques in certain which are novel and less performed. And I'm sure that you will be having patients who are candidates for these patients, for these surgeries. So next slide, Bhargav. So I'll briefly go through the tracheal resection reconstruction, the various tracheal pathologies, surgical indications, technique of tracheal resection reconstruction. Then I'll go to the Bhargav, next slide. The newer laryngotracheal reconstruction techniques. So we will go through the conservative or voice-preserving laryngeal surgeries, the current status, and we'll go through certain techniques which use combined endoscopic and open approach for doing a partial laryngectomy. We'll go through the use of facial artery-based vascularized flaps in laryngotracheal reconstruction, and reconstruction of partial laryngeal defects using certain interesting techniques like tracheal autotransplantation, Gilbert's type reconstruction, and I'll try to bring our personal experience with a technique called Tamil in this reconstruction of partial laryngectomy defects. Next slide. So we all know the indications for tracheal resection. The most common cause of the most common indication for a tracheal resection is usually a traumatic injury to the trachea causing tracheal stenosis, of which post-intubation injury is most common. In oncology practice, we find carcinomas involving the trachea, which are also quite rare, but squamous cell carcinoma and adenoid cystic carcinoma are common among the in the tracheal tumors which you find. Though tracheal tumors as such, primary tracheal tumors as such are rare. Then there are secondary tumors which involve trachea. Thyroid carcinomas, we find one of the common indications for tracheal resection in our part of the country, in Kerala, is thyroid carcinoma. Also, there can be other tumors coming from the esophagus, lung, breast, thymus, other head and neck sites, lymphoma, etc. Also, there can be some other causes like blunt injuries, infections, etc. Next slide, Bhargav. So we know that we need to choose, this is a picture of tracheal stenosis. You know various grades of tracheal stenosis. So you need to choose the patient who would require a tracheal resection anastomosis. So I'll be mainly focusing on tracheal resection anastomosis, tracheal stenosis, which is an indication for tracheal resection anastomosis. That is a higher grade of tracheal stenosis, whether it's near complete or a good obliteration of the lumen, and the patient is in need of a long-term tracheostomy. Next slide. So these are pictures of primary tracheal malignancies. The picture on the left-hand side is an adenoid cystic carcinoma, and on the right-hand side is a squamous cell carcinoma. You can see that the difference in the appearance is quite striking. Adenoid cystic carcinoma, you know that it's relatively well-defined, relatively smooth, well-contoured. But squamous cell carcinoma, you can see that it's an ulceroproliferative lesion which you are seeing in the trachea. To know the tumor biology is very important when you're going for any tracheal resection for a malignancy. It's important that you know the tumor behavior properly, because squamous cell carcinoma, it's relatively easier to come out with a clear margin, and you should go for a tracheal resection for a malignancy only if you have a frozen section facility. That is what I would advise. Because in this particular case, it's important that you come out with the clear margins. And also in adenoid cystic carcinoma, the issue is like the extratumoral microscopic spread of the tumor is somewhat unpredictable. So here, even before surgery, you should be counseling the patient about a probable extent of the tumor can be more than what you see on endoscopy or even on imaging. So you should be prepared for a surgery which can be more extensive, or you should even be prepared to come out of the surgery in case you're not able to achieve a margin and you're going to cause a considerable morbidity without achieving any good result for the patient. So next slide, Varga. So assessment of the tumor, assessment of the area of resection is very important in tracheal resection surgery. So you try to find the extent of the tumor using whatever tools you have in your hand, do a good laryngoscopic examination. Make sure that your larynx is functioning well otherwise. Then you do a bronchoscopy where required. See the complete extent of the tumor. Using an imaging technique, you can see the posterior, anterior posterior extent, superior inferior extent, and the lateral extent. You have to image, and you should be having a clear understanding of what you're going to do. And it's also important that you do a proper swallowing and pulmonology evaluation to get good results. Next slide, Bhargav. So it's important that you ensure adequate and functional laryngeal airway in all these surgeries. Also, you have to make sure that the vocal cord function and the swallowing function are unaffected before going for a tracheal resection. Next slide. So the primary goal of the surgery is to remove the pathology. remove the issue, whatever it is, like if it's a stenosis or if it's a malignancy, you have to remove. And after removing it well, it's important that you maintain an adequate and functioning airway. Okay, next slide. So, of utmost importance during tracheal surgery is a good communication with the anesthetist, because you should have an experienced and competent anesthetist. That's a must, because you need to do intermittent. You're going to share the airway. You may have to withdraw the tube intermittently. There can be blood and secretions which can go into the airway. So you have to be careful. At times, even the anesthetist will have to watch for what you are doing. So that's important that you have a good team while doing a tracheal surgery. You need to form a good team with the anesthetist. And also it's important that your anastomosis is well planned, because all the small techniques will eventually make a difference while you complete the surgery. It's important that you avoid tension at the suture site in the post-procedure period, because you need to keep the neck in flexion after surgery. And also it's important in the post-procedure period, you need to watch for airway edema. Bhargav, next slide. So the dissection technique, it's safe. It's important that you go for a safe technique. It's important that you understand the tracheal vascularity in detail. It's important that you understand the recurrent laryngeal nerve location. One thing you need to know is, like, unlike thyroid surgery where you are seeing the recurrent laryngeal nerve in a different perspective, you're not really doing a thyroid exposure in a tracheal, so you don't need to really do it. So it's important that you need to have a clear understanding of recurrent laryngeal nerve, where it is going to be as it is coming closer to the larynx. At least you should try to avoid going near the recurrent laryngeal nerve if not required. And it's important that you identify critical structures like innominate artery, because there can be a high-riding innominate, and it shouldn't be that you are inadvertently you go on to injure something as vital as innominate artery. And anterior dissection is better, because you can identify the trachea easily, the anterior part of the trachea, and you can go laterally. Next slide, Bhargav. So this is a picture which is showing the vascularity of trachea. So you should know that trachea has a segmental vascularity. So mainly, I'll be talking about the cervical trachea. So in the cervical trachea itself, it has a segmental vascularity. Upper, mid part, and the lower part are supplied by branches from the inferior thyroid artery. And inferior thyroid artery, from the inferior thyroid artery, you have the tracheoesophageal branches. And this tracheal branch would go between in the intercartilaginous area, and it will have an anterior and posterior division. And these have anastomosis, longitudinal anastomosis with a segment above. So this vascular understanding of and a good understanding of this vascularity is important, because then you will know how much. Then you will know where to avoid dissection, where you shouldn't injure the blood vessels. And another thing is, like, in case you're going to mobilize the trachea, you should know how much you can mobilize. All those things. And you should know how many tracheal rings you can resect if required. So you should know approximately in how many tracheal rings you all know that trachea is around 10 to 12 centimeters in length, and it has around 18 to 22 tracheal rings are usually there. And usually in a centimeter, you'll be having around 2 tracheal rings, including the intertracheal area. So in case you need to mobilize the trachea, it's important that it's vital that you understand all this anatomical information. And like as seen in the picture on the right side, it's safer and easier to go from the anterior part, because there is no other vital structure, there is no other important structure. It's easier to identify the trachea because of its rigidity. So go from the center and move laterally would be the right technique. Next slide, Bhargav. It's important that you know the relationship of the recurrent laryngeal nerve to the trachea. This picture I've just shared because this is a method we use to identify the recurrent laryngeal nerve. This we find it very consistent because it's adjacent to the fixed landmark. Like recurrent laryngeal nerve is always 1 to 1.5 centimeters medial to the inferior thyroid core. And this is a triangle of dissection. This picture shows a triangle of dissection, which is bounded laterally by the common carotid artery, medially by the trachea, inferiorly the common carotid artery joining the subclavian. And recurrent laryngeal nerve will be moving on the right side. Recurrent laryngeal nerve moving in almost an oblique direction, crossing the common carotid artery inferiorly and deep to the common carotid artery and going towards this particular inferior thyroid corner. Rathan has written like Wong's point. Yeah, Wong's point. That's 1 to 1.5 centimeter medial to the inferior thyroid corner. So this is the triangle of dissection which we use in a redo thyroid surgery. So while doing it for a tracheal resection, it's important that you know that you will be closer to the upper part of the trachea. So you stay close to the trachea. Avoid this point. Avoid this recurrent laryngeal nerve. You really don't need to identify it unless some tumor resection demands so. So if possible, you avoid it. If you need to tackle it, you identify it properly and do it. So I'll come to the next slide. Next slide. So this is a tracheal stenosis which we are seeing. So in this particular picture, you're seeing that we are getting below the stenotic segment which you have to resect. You pass a flexometallic tube to the distal trachea. Now you resect the stenotic segment. Now you plan your sutures. There should be parasuturing suture. I'll show you in the next slide. And as you complete the sutures, you are withdrawing the tube which you have inserted into the distal trachea, and you will be pushing the proximal tube down. Next slide, Bhargav. So this is how you're going to take a parachuting sutures. You're starting from the posterior part, and you don't really tighten the suture. You'll be taking multiple sutures. You'll be keeping some space so that you can take all sutures together just before withdrawing the tube, and you can close it comfortably. Because as you know, if you start suturing from anterior portion and if you tighten the sutures, it will be difficult to complete the suture. So this would be the right technique to do the anastomosis. Next slide, Bhargav. So this is a picture which is showing a thyrotracheal anastomosis in case you need to take the anterior portion of the cricoid due to a stenotic segment. Then you can actually advance the tracheal cartilage towards the thyroid. And so this is how it is done. Next slide, Bhargav. I'll be coming to the facial artery based vascular reconstructions later on. But since I'm just discussing about the tracheal reconstruction, I just put in this slide, which is showing something called the islanded facial artery osteomyomucosal flap for tracheal reconstruction. In this particular case, around 5 tracheal rings, partially 5 tracheal rings had to be removed, and membranous trachea of all those 5 tracheal corresponding to those 5 tracheal rings, upper 5 tracheal rings had to be removed. Part of cricoid cartilage also had to be removed. So we needed a bony reconstruction. So this particular bone seen in the picture on the left hand side is the part of the mandible, which is the vascularized part of the mandible, because facial artery and vein with the surrounding soft tissue and periosteum is attached to the mandible. And that was taken along with the buccinator myomucosal flap. So the buccinator myomucosal flap was used to reconstruct the membranous trachea, and the bony part was used to support the cricothyroid cartilaginous area. So as I told, we'll be coming to the IFAM-based reconstructions again. Now we'll go to the laryngotracheal, the novel laryngeal reconstruction methods. Bhargav, next slide. Next slide, yeah. So we know that voice preserving surgery in carcinoma larynx, in early stage carcinoma larynx, previously open partial laryngectomy was common, but now transoral laser has taken the place of open partial laryngectomy. So early stage carcinoma larynx as primary treatment, transoral laser surgery is being followed and accepted widely, and there is enough evidence of its results compared to radiotherapy now. And it can also be used in small volume recurrent carcinoma larynx. I know that there are certain centers which do transoral laser surgery in advanced larynx cancers also. But clearly we have very good evidence in terms of early glottic carcinoma, survival wise and also voice results wise. We have very good evidence now. And open partial laryngectomy. What is the role of open partial laryngectomy now? So we really find its use in post-radiation recurrent carcinoma, where adequate clearance preserving the function is possible. Like you can get adequate clearance with adequate margins, but you should also be able to preserve the function. Otherwise, there is no point in going for a partial laryngectomy. There you have to go for a total laryngectomy. So in post-radiation scenario, open partial laryngectomy has a role in selected cases. Also, open partial laryngectomy has a role in selected advanced larynx and hypopharynx carcinoma. I'll come to that now. Bhargav, next slide. So it's important that you understand some anatomical areas pertaining to the laryngotracheal. You should be having a clear understanding about the cricoarytenoid unit, where you're going to encounter the cricoarytenoid unit. You should precisely know the course of laryngeal nerve in relation to the larynx and trachea. And also one more very important thing is like the mechanism of voice compensation following partial laryngeal surgeries. The types of voice compensation following partial laryngeal surgeries is very important. If you want to ensure that the voice results are consistent and predictable. So I'll come to the voice compensation types now. Next slide, Bhargav. So there are various papers which have clearly described the laryngeal compensation mechanisms for voice production after carbon dioxide laser cordectomy. Next slide, Bhargav. So after a laser cordectomy, there are different types of voice compensations happening in the larynx. So it's a type 1 is a vocal fold to vocal fold compensation. Type 2 is a vocal fold to neovocal fold. Type 3 is a vocal fold to vestibular fold. Type 4 is a vestibular fold to vestibular fold. And type 5 is a arytenoid hyperreduction. So I'll come to that again. Bhargav, next slide. So this slide is showing the pictures. So type 1, you can see that the true vocal cord is compensating with the true vocal cord on the opposite side after surgery. So this is going to have a good result. Type 2, you can see that is a neofold on the left side, and the right side is a undisturbed vocal cord. So the normal unoperated vocal cord is going to compensate with the neovocal fold. This is the type 2 type compensation. And type 3 compensation is what? The true vocal cord is going to compensate against. It's going to approximate against the false vocal cord on the opposite side. Okay, that's a type 3. And what is type 4? Type 4 is like you don't have the true vocal cord compensation at all, but still the patient is going to have a good voice. Good voice because the false cords are approximating. So I'll show you some videos of false chord. Bhargav, just the previous picture once more. Yeah, and there is a type 5. There is a type 5 compensation also, which is a arytenoid hyperreduction when you don't have a false vocal cord. Next slide. So this is a transmuscular chordectomy done for a. You can see the pre-op video. You can play Bhargav, pre-op video first video. So this particular patient was having a left vocal cord lesion. It's a T1 lesion, and yeah, I think now you can see the lesion on the left vocal cord. Almost the entire vocal cord, almost close to the anterior commissure was affected. And on the right hand side, Bhargav, the right side, third video. So this video is showing the post-op status. It's 3 years post-op, and you can see that the neovocal fold is on the left side, and the normal vocal fold is the right side. So the right vocal fold, which is unoperated, is compensating against the neovocal fold. This is a type 2 voice compensation. This is a reasonably good approximation, but still the patient is having a minimal phonatory gap. You can see the patient's voice. You can hear the patient's voice now. Bhargav, yeah. Can you hear that? Bhargav, can you hear?
Yes, sir, we are able to hear.
Yeah. So yeah, I couldn't follow that audio. That's why I asked. Can't hear the audio. Can you do something about it, Bhargav?
Sir, the audio output is clear from our side. I'll see, sir, what I can do.
Yeah, yeah. It's good. Okay. So fine. The next slide. So you can, that was a type 2 compensation. And this particular patient, this is a transoral laser for a recurrent glottic carcinoma. It's a recurrent glottic carcinoma, but it's a small volume recurrent carcinoma. Can you play the first video, Bhargav? So you can see that the lesion is on the right vocal cord. And since it is a post-RT case, we went ahead with a wide resection. And actually the vocal cords, true vocal cords, were taken away with a very good margin. And now the post-op 3-year status you can see. Bhargav, second video. So you can see how the true vocal cords are almost non-existent, but the false cord, you can see the false cords compensating. Bhargav, can you play the video once more? Yeah. The false cord actually compensates well. And this is a type for compensation of voice. Bhargav, can you play the third video? You can listen to his voice. Unfortunately, I am not able to hear the audio. Bhargav?
Yes, sir. I'll restart again. Sir, are you able to hear, sir?
Yeah, yeah. Now I am able to clearly hear.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So the patient is actually counting in Malayalam. So the voice in a type 4 compensation is as good as, like, at least function. as we perceive, it's all as good as, or even it can even be better than a type 2 voice compensation. So the issue is like there are certain surgical techniques described where people resect false vocal cord just to provide exposure to the true vocal cord lesion. So if you do this, like if you want to get the best possible result in transoral laser surgery, you should remove only the tumor, only the adequate tumor with the adequate margin. That's if the true vocal cord lesion has to be removed, you remove it with adequate margin. You may remove part of false vocal cord, which is necessary, just necessary to provide exposure to the true vocal cord lesion. So if you have exposure, you shouldn't be, what I meant to say is like, you shouldn't be routinely removing false vocal cord for a glottic tumor. You may remove it to provide the necessary exposure, but just the necessary exposure. Because if you remove the false vocal cord, you are taking away from the patient the chance to have a type 4 voice compensation. Like in this patient, he had a breathy voice till around 6 to 8 months, and his voice at 8 months is as good as the voice now you're hearing. So next slide. So I wanted to mention about this voice compensation because even in open partial laryngectomy, voice is becoming important. Because open partial laryngectomy, there is a lot of concern about function. Because most of these patients are post-radiation recurrent carcinoma larynx. There's concern about wound healing. There is concern about the voice results, airway results. So most of the post-radiation failure patients go in for a total laryngectomy. So next slide. So I'll now go to some interesting newer reconstruction techniques, which have been described to facilitate voice correction in conservative laryngectomy, and also to even provide the option of resecting in a relatively advanced laryngeal cancer with preserving voice. I'll just go to it. Bhargav, next slide.
Just a second.
Yeah. So two interesting techniques which have been described for reconstruction following conservative laryngectomy have been by Ralph Gilbert from Canada, who described the temporoparietal fascia flap plus cartilage plus mucosa graft for a vertical partial laryngectomy, and another by Pierre Dallaire, who is a Belgian surgeon, who described a technique called tracheal autotransplantation. Next slide, Bhargav. Next slide. Yeah. So we'll go to the Gilbert procedure first. Gilbert procedure is actually a vertical partial laryngectomy. After a vertical partial laryngectomy, the area is reconstructed. A vertical partial laryngectomy in his series, he has done it in post-radiation recurrent tumors. So vertical partial laryngectomy has been done for this limited tumor, which would have otherwise gone for a total laryngectomy. And the area of partial laryngectomy has been reconstructed. The defect of partial laryngectomy was reconstructed with temporoparietal fascia free flap and remnant thyroid cartilage. So he described this technique in around 36 patients and described local recurrence-free survival of around 84% at 3 years and 75% at 5 years. So next slide. So this is a pictorial representation. So you can see that vertical partial laryngectomy is done. The tumor, as you can see, is on the left vocal cord. Vertical partial laryngectomy is done. The tumor clearance is ensured. And this defect was reconstructed. Because if you just close it, if you just leave it like that, the opposite cord will find it hard to compensate with the resected side. So he used, like in tongue resections and all, previously reconstruction was done. But now reconstruction is done even for a moderate sized defect, because we want to provide good functional results. Similarly, in larynx also, you are removing the tumor with an adequate margin, and you are replacing the tissues so that there is compensation for voice. So in this case, temporoparietal fascia, which is a thin flap, is used, and this is used to sandwich a part of the thyroid cartilage, which you took from the remnant thyroid cartilage. And this thyroid cartilage was placed in such a way that it opposes against the functioning vocal cord on the opposite side. And the vessels of temporoparietal fascia, superficial temporal artery and vein, was anastomosed to the superior thyroid artery and vein. Buccal mucosa was used as a graft on the medial side, that is to the side which has to compensate with the opposite true vocal cord. So that is the Gilbert procedure. Next slide, Bhargav. So this is a picture of a patient for whom we did a modified Gilbert's procedure. The preoperative scopy shows a recurrent subglottic carcinoma. The patient had already undergone radiation for subglottic carcinoma, and now the patient presented with a recurrent subglottic carcinoma. Both vocal cords were mobile, and it was just that small tumor in the subglottic area. So we were faced with the situation like if total laryngectomy would be a straightforward option, but that would deny the patient of any. The patient was a 49-year-old patient with no other comorbidities, and he didn't even have a history of addiction also. So we wanted to give the patient the chance of voice preservation if possible. So we thought a Gilbert type procedure would be good for this patient. So the tumor was resected. The tumor was approached from the trachea. So the Perot picture which you're seeing on the left-hand side inferiorly in the lower part is showing the entry of the knife into the trachea below the tumor, and this was visualized through an endoscope placed through a tracheostoma. So tracheostoma was made and endoscope was placed through it, and the tumor was seen, and inferior to the tumor with an adequate margin away from the tumor, we entered the trachea and the tumor was resected out with a good margin. So what you're seeing on the right hand side lower part is the tumor being resected with an adequate margin. So this was sent for frozen section and margin clearance was confirmed. During this resection, the concern was always about the cricoarytenoid joint, because you are resecting part of the cricoid also, you are removing 2 rings of the trachea, you are taking a little part of the thyroid cartilage. So you should have as far as possible, if it is possible, you should try to preserve the cricoarytenoid unit so that you get a good function postoperatively. Bhargav, next slide. So once the tumor was resected, there is a defect there. So this was reconstructed using a temporoparietal fascia free flap. So this on the left hand side, you can see the temporoparietal fascia flap along with the superficial temporal artery and vein. We took conchal cartilage instead of the thyroid cartilage, which is used by Ralph Gilbert. We took part of the conchal cartilage and sandwiched it in the temporoparietal fascia, and temporoparietal fascia flap was anastomosed. The superficial temporal artery and vein was anastomosed to the superior thyroid artery and vein. So, and buccal mucosa was placed medially as done in the Gilbert technique. Next slide, Bhargav. So, can you play the voice video?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Bhargav,
Are you able to hear the sound?
Yeah. Yeah. Can hear the sound. I hope everyone can hear. Bhargav, can you play the third video? So you can see the reconstructed site here. The cords are moving. The anterior commissure is a little bit affected. Can you once more, Bhargav? The anterior commissure shows the changes of post-resection changes, and you can see the reconstructed area just below the glottis. Go next slide. So that's a Gilbert-Wright reconstruction. Now we'll go to tracheal autotransplantation. Next slide, Bhargav. So what are the contraindications for conservative, conventionally what we consider contraindications for conservative laryngeal resection? Unilateral T3 glottic tumors with subglottic extension or with arytenoid cartilage fixity are usually considered contraindication for conservative laryngeal resection. And also pyriform sinus tumors involving the apex of pyriform is considered contraindication for conservative laryngeal resection classically. Because cricoid resection is required for margin clearance, and as cricoid resection is considered incompatible with decannulation. All these patients usually undergo total laryngectomy or near total laryngectomy with a permanent tracheostomy. Next slide. So tracheal autotransplantation was a technique described by the Belgian surgeon Pierre Delaire, who was a professor of respiratory surgery at Belgium. He described a two-stage procedure to tackle this particular issue, and his technique of tracheal autotransplantation allows reconstruction of a full height cricoid defect and allows conservative laryngeal resection up to the lower edge of cricoid. We'll go to that technique. Pierre Delaire is also well known for the tracheal allotransplantation study which he did, which was a case report which is published in New England Journal of Medicine. For a case report, New England Journal of Medicine dedicated 8 to 10 pages. So he has done considerable work in tracheal auto or allotransplant. Next slide. Yeah. So this is a two-stage procedure. So what is a stage 1? In stage 1, radial artery forearm flap was taken. This is taken as an adiposofacial flap. Adiposofacial radial artery forearm flap was taken, and this was anastomosed to the superior thyroid artery and vein in the neck. And this flap was wrapped circumferentially around a part of the trachea just below the cricoid. Around 3 to 4 inches of trachea was completely wrapped using the radial artery forearm flap. And this radial artery forearm flap was anastomosed to the superior thyroid vessels in neck. And during, for this, at this stage, he'll do the ipsilateral thyroid lobe is removed to access the trachea. And neck dissection also is done in the same stage. But the primary is not addressed in the first stage. Next slide. So this is a picture. Adiposofacial radial artery forearm flap taken. It is wrapped around the trachea. I hope you can make out from the pictorial depiction on the right hand side. The flap is actually going around the trachea, 3-4 rings of trachea. And now the trachea is getting vascularity from the flap, which is from the superior thyroid artery and vein. Next slide. So what is he doing in the tracheal transplantation stage 2? Now he'll wait for 2 weeks. 2 weeks is for establishing a vascularity to the trachea from the this radial artery forearm flap. Vascularized, the trachea becomes vascularized through the radial artery forearm flap. And after 2 weeks, he resects the tumor, which is usually a vertical partial laryngopharyngectomy. And now the part of cricoid is also cut along with the tumor. And now the defect is there. And the segment of trachea, which is which is getting vascularized from the radial artery forearm flap, is now cut completely from the neck. From the rest of the trachea and the cricoid cartilage, this segment of trachea is completely cut and it is separated from the rest of the trachea, but it is kept attached to the vascular pedicle. Now what he has created. The membranous trachea of this segment is now removed to make a patch of tracheal cartilage. Next slide. So I hope you can understand from the picture on the right side, the tracheal segments which are being vascularized using, which is vascularized using the radial artery forearm flap is taken out. You can see the gap between the trachea and the distal and proximal ends. And the membranous trachea is taken. So you can see the tracheal cartilages. There is a tracheal patch now without the membranous trachea, and this is vascularized by the superior thyroid artery and vein through the radial artery forearm flap. Next slide. So vascularized tracheal patch is now sutured to the remnant hemilarynx to reconstruct the laryngeal defect. Next slide, Bhargav. I'll just show that and I will come back. So this tracheal patch is placed against is sutured and fixed to the cricoid cartilage and also to the thyroid cartilage, remnant thyroid cartilage. After a vertical partial laryngopharyngectomy, the defect following this is reconstructed using this tracheal patch. I hope you understood it. And now there is a defect between the trachea, the distal tracheal end and the reconstructed larynx segment. And this is approximated using the thyrotracheal anastomosis. Or if we had taken the tracheal rings below the first ring, tracheal to tracheal anastomosis is done, and the tracheal patch is used to reconstruct the remnant larynx. So this was the technique. Later on, he described a technique where the tumor is also removed in the first stage, but reconstruction is completed in the second stage. Next slide, Bhargav. So what are the advantages of tracheal reconstruction, autotransplantation? You are achieving reconstruction of the remnant hemilarynx with the structural support of the tracheal cartilages. You are able to do resection which otherwise would not have been possible. And there is preservation of native vascularized airway mucosa because tracheal mucosa has come up to the level of the larynx. And good functional outcomes were reported by Dallaire. Around 36 patients he had described. And he described good functional outcomes in these patients. But what are the disadvantages? It's quite a complex procedure. It is two-staged. There is risk of disease progression while waiting for the second stage. And the cost of procedure, because two stages are involved, a microvascular surgery is involved in case of any failure, especially since it is a post-radiation status. In case of a failure, second procedures can be there. So it's an expense. Cost of procedure is quite high. Larger defects involving pharynx are not addressed by this procedure. And sensory disruption of airway mucosa can happen as tracheal patch is completely separated from the rest of the trachea. Next slide. So this is a procedure which we did in our hospital, which is called tracheal advancement with myomucosal island flap for partial laryngopharyngectomy, defect reconstruction, or Tamil. This is a procedure described for vertical partial laryngectomy. Next slide. In this patient, this is a carcinoma pyriform sinus post neoadjuvant chemotherapy, progressive disease. So he was not planned for chemoradiation as there is a progression of disease after neoadjuvant chemotherapy. So this patient can go for a total laryngectomy, but actually his vocal cords are mobile. The left side, contralateral vocal cord is completely mobile. The disease is limited to one side. And the patient was young. Patient is not having any other comorbidity. And the issue was like, this patient would have been a good candidate for tracheal autotransplantation. But we were quite concerned because it would be a two-stage procedure. It would be an expensive procedure. And the results may be a little unpredictable. So we thought whether we can do it in any other way. Bhargav, can you play the video? So you can see that actually the vocal cords are mobile and the disease is completely on the left side. And there is a progressive disease after neoadjuvant chemo. You can see that in the imaging, you can see that disease is going around the thyroid cartilage on the ipsilateral side. Next slide. Okay, so this patient can go for a vertical partial laryngopharyngectomy that can clear the disease completely. You have to remove part of the cricoid also to remove the disease completely. How can you reconstruct it? So if you go for, if you don't want to go for a Dallaire procedure, we thought what we can do is like if you keep the tracheal continuity. Dallaire was concerned about the vascularity of the trachea, so that's why he wanted to give a separate vascular support. We thought the vascularity of trachea can be maintained if you keep it in continuity with the trachea. If you don't remove a segment of trachea, you can keep the vascularity of trachea intact, because we know that trachea can be mobilized to some extent. If you take care not to disturb the vascularity of trachea much, you can move the trachea, you can pull up the trachea after a vertical partial laryngopharyngectomy, remove the membranous trachea and appose it against the thyroid cartilage and the cricoid cartilage. So the results of tracheal autotransplantation can be reproduced by a single stage technique, which doesn't have to be a microvascular surgery. So you can see that in picture 2, the vertical partial laryngopharyngectomy, the tumor is, the thyroid cartilage is opened, cricoid cartilage, hemicricoid is removed, and the third picture, the picture C, would show the defect after resection. You can see that hemicricoid is there, hemithyroid is there, and the trachea till the first ring is there. Next slide, Bhargav. So this is the intro picture. Next slide. So what we are doing is like the trachea is now completely transected at the level of cricoid, and trachea is mobilized, and the membranous trachea is removed. Now once the trachea is mobilized, trachea is rotated, and you have to make sure that you don't injure the recurrent laryngeal nerve, you don't disturb the tracheal vascularity, so you have to be very careful with the tracheal blood supply. Rotate the trachea and take it to the level of true vocal cord. So, and now the tracheal cartilage, this tracheal cartilage is fixed to the cricoid, also the thyroid cartilage, up to the level of true vocal cord. And the pharyngeal defect was reconstructed using a flap which is called islanded facial artery myomucosal flap, which is taken from the oral cavity. Next slide, Bhargav. So this is an intro picture. The left-hand side picture shows the defective area. The pharynx, a lot of pharynx is taken away after surgery. And now the picture on the right side shows trachea mobilized to the level of true vocal cord and fixed to the cricoid cartilage and the thyroid cartilage. Next slide. Next slide. So this particular flap which you are seeing is called the islanded facial artery myomucosal flap. This we were initially doing it for oral cavity reconstruction. This is actually taken from the buccal mucosa side, like buccinator myomucosal flap. The buccal mucosa, buccinator and the facial artery are taken without disturbing the facial vessel continuity. So this flap, as it can move into the oral cavity, it can move to the neck also, move towards the clavicle side also, as you can see in the picture. So this was used to reconstruct the pharyngeal defect. Next slide, Bhargav. So this is the Tamil procedure, is like the trachea is moved to reconstruct the laryngeal defect, and the pharyngeal defect is reconstructed using the islanded facial artery myomucosal flap. Next slide, Bhargav. So this is the post-op picture. On the right-hand side, you can see that the mucosa of the FAM flap, and this is the post-op CT scan 1 year post-surgery, showing the unresected side and the reconstructed side. Next slide, Bhargav. Can you play the voice? Yeah, his voice is a little bit breathy, but still it's possible to avoid a permanent tracheostoma, and he can breathe through the nose. This is the video fluoroscopy after the procedure. video fluoroscopy showed no evidence of aspiration. Yeah, next slide. Next slide. So when you compare Tamil with tracheal autotransplantation, we find that Tamil is a single stage procedure, provides rigid structural support to larynx, can reconstruct larger pharyngeal defects than probably tracheal autotransplantation. It's likely to be more sensate as tracheal continuity is preserved. It is less time consuming. There is no distant donor site like a forearm in this particular technique. No microvascular surgery is required. It is much less expensive. And only issue would be a possibility of marginal mandibular paresis as you're raising a islanded facial artery myomucosal flap. Next slide. So this was published in Head and Neck as a case report. Next slide. So now we'll go to some combined procedures like combined endoscopic laser and open approach or a hybrid approach. See, when you want to resect a tumor and you have to do a partial laryngectomy, the issue you usually face is like you usually approach from, conventionally you approach from outside to in. Of the tumor. You're not visualizing the tumor as you're entering the larynx, unless you, otherwise you should be going for a larger resection, like going below the cricoid, above the cricoid and above the thyroid cartilage. We can ensure that probably you can ensure that. But if you want to just do a limited resection of thyroid cartilage, then you have to make sure that the mucosal margins are taken clearly. So for that, what you can do is like you can do a laser approach from inside. You remove the inner part, the mucosal part of the tumor with the laser. You can ensure good margins with it. Now, to ensure the external margins, you can come out. You can do an open approach and remove just the required amount of thyroid cartilage. Can you play the video, Bhargav? So this patient is having a right vocal cord lesion. So we were not really, this is a post-RT recurrence, and we were not really sure that we would be able to get though there was no through and through cartilage erosion on CT scan, we were not sure that we can get a good margin by a transoral approach alone. So, but we can ensure a good margin if you take a part of thyroid cartilage. So that was the concept. And all these procedures done under frozen guidance. Next slide. Next slide. So this is how it is done. After the transoral mucosal cuts are taken, you cut the cartilage. You can use a saw to cut the cartilage. You create a cartilage window and enter the larynx. So now your outside cuts can communicate with the mucosal cuts under endoscopic guidance. So you can almost ensure that the tumor comes out with good margins, and then you can send it for frozen section to make sure that margins are clear. Next slide. So this is can you play the video? This is a hybrid procedure without flap reconstruction. That's hybrid procedure is done, and we didn't do any particular reconstruction. You can see the neocord on the left side, and this is a type 2 compensation, voice compensation. If you remember the previous compensation types which I told, this is a type 2 compensation, and that too with a good phonatory gap. Next slide. Next video. So this particular video shows a partial laryngectomy defect, which we have reconstructed with the islanded facial artery myoartery. It's like the vertical partial laryngopharyngectomy is done, and the defect is reconstructed using the buccinator myomucosal flap. Yeah, what you're seeing on the right side is the area which the defect, vertical partial laryngectomy defect, which is reconstructed with the facial artery myomucosal flap. This was done to provide reconstruction like a Gilbert type reconstruction, but with an islanded facial artery myomucosal flap. And the procedure was planned as a hybrid procedure. Next slide. Next slide again. Voice, please. So this patient was not able to hear the audio. Yeah. So you can understand that that's a type 2 compensation, but it's not well compensated. His voice is still breathy. But for a patient, for an elderly patient with comorbidities, in a single stage, in 2 days, the procedure was over and the patient could be discharged without any problem. And patient is free of disease. Now it's post-op 2 years. And the second patient is the post-RT recurrent carcinoma larynx, which we have done an IFAM reconstruction after VPL. So when you are reconstructing with an islanded facial artery myomucosal flap, what I've noticed is like initially the voice would be good, but unless you push in the FAM a little more, the FAM can reduce in bulk later, and the voice can go down after reconstruction in some time. Can you play the video? Yeah. I think all my blinding has not worked properly, but anyway. Actually, the patient in this video, you can see that, you can hear that the patient's voice is breathy in spite of giving an IFAM reconstruction. But this is a post-radiation recurrent carcinoma, whereas the first procedure, hybrid procedure, a primary tumor. Next slide. Next slide. So just before concluding, or as we conclude, I would say that the most important key to success in this surgery is patient selection. You have to choose younger patients, patients with good performance score, possible to achieve a good clearance following partial. It should be possible to achieve a good clearance following partial laryngectomy. And the patient should be motivated to undergo multiple procedures if required. Because even after a surgery, like the patient is not happy with the voice, you can actually improve the voice using an injection technique or a thyroplasty technique. And you should be aware of the financial considerations of this procedure. And facilities of the center are important because the patient may require ICU, and the people should be aware of the tracheostomy management. And the training of the surgery and anesthesia team also very important. Next slide. So thank you so much for the patient listening. I'm ready to take questions if you have any.
Are you able to hear me, sir?
Yes, yes.
So thank you, sir. That was an excellent presentation. There are many questions in the chat box. Our first question is by Dr. Ashok Das. Any particular tip on taking biopsy from tracheal growth?
Yeah. See, while taking biopsy for tracheal growth, if it's a small tracheal growth, if possible, you can do with a flexible bronchoscope. Flexible bronchoscope would be better. And if you doubt that it's going to bleed, it's better you ensure airway safety using with tracheostomy. So that's what I would say.
Okay, sir. Our next question is by Dr. Abhimanyu. Which imaging modality do you prefer for a malignancy invading trachea?
See, I would prefer to have both an MRI as well as a CT scan, because these tumors can have soft tissue spread, and you also want to see the tracheal cartilage involvement, the extent of involvement. So it's better to have both an MRI as well as a CT. Next slide. Sorry,
Okay,
next question.
How much margin to take in tracheal neoplasm? Adenoid cystic carcinoma versus squamous cell carcinoma?
See, all squamous cell carcinomas, you should ensure at least 5 millimeters margin. So that's what we follow here. We take 5 millimeter, make sure that we have 5 millimeter margin. Adenoid cystic carcinoma also, though it is not very well defined regarding the adenoid cystic carcinoma margin, we try to achieve at least 5 millimeter margin. But you have to be very much aware, as I previously told, you have to be very much aware that extratumoral microscopic spread in adenoid cystic carcinoma is quite unpredictable. So you should be prepared for that. You should be counseling the patient accordingly. You should be prepared for doing a more extensive procedure, or even withdrawing from the procedure if required. Because there is no point giving a positive margin surgery after removing the larynx.
Okay, sir. Our next question is by Dr. Prathamesh Pai, sir. He was just asking who is Wang after Ratan Shetty sir has mentioned him.
Yeah, I'll tell you. See, the laryngeal re-innovation techniques, no? Wang was a person who has done good work in laryngeal re-innovation. So, for laryngeal re-innovation, the recurrent laryngeal nerve anatomy in relation to the thyroid cornu, inferior thyroid cornu, was important. So he has studied it properly and he described it. So that is about Wang. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Another question by Dr. Ranjana. He is asking recurrent laryngeal nerve relationship at various points, I think along its course.
That's a little, that would require a detailed discussion. But I would tell you, I mean, I had shown you that slide. Like recurrent laryngeal nerve, you have to know that it always comes deep to the carotid. So the lower area, deep to the carotid. So you don't have to really worry if you're going above the plane of carotid. All right. And as you come on the right side, you know that's an oblique course. It can go between the inferior thyroid branches, but that can vary. It can go between, below, or above. So you have to be prepared for it. And superiorly, this particular point, long span, inferior thyroid cornu, 1 to 1.5 centimeters, medial to the inferior thyroid cornu. So that would be almost a fixed point in majority patients. So if at all you have any issue, like if you are thinking about a thyroid surgery, it's always deep to the thyroid, you know that. So, the relationship of the nerve to the tubercle of sucker candle, you have to be aware of it. And superiorly, go for this fixed point, inferior thyroid cornu, just medial to the inferior, around 1 centimeter medial to the inferior thyroid cornu, you are going to encounter the recurrent laryngeal nerve. So be aware of this point, dissect carefully around these points. You will find the recurrent laryngeal nerve.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is by Dr. Ankit. Is a pre-op tracheostomy contraindication for Delayer's procedure?
Pre-op?
Tracheostomy. Preoperative tracheostomy.
Preoperative tracheostomy can be an issue with the tracheal autotransplantation. Unless otherwise it's planned, it is done in a very planned way with minimal damage to the trachea and at a lower area. So like all these procedures, like in Tamil also, we have a tracheostomy. The patient is retaining the tracheostomy after surgery. So the tracheostomy is planned in such a way that it is a little away from, around 3 tracheal rings away from the area of dissection you're going to, the area to which you're going to mobilize the tracheal cartilages. Because you're going to take the first 3-4, you're going to mobilize the first 3-4 rings of trachea. So make sure that you enter the trachea using a minimal incision in the endotracheal area but leaving 2 to 3 tracheal rings below the area you have mobilized. Okay.
Okay, sir. So our next question is, do you think whether bone in the facial artery mandibular myomucosal flap integrate with laryngotracheal cartilage framework?
No. I don't think it will integrate. The aim was to provide a structural support. See, the tracheal cartilages are there, partial part of tracheal cartilages are there, part of cricoid is there. So the primary aim was to support the thyroid cartilage, the tracheal cricoid cartilage and the tracheal cartilage rings. It was not for integration. And actually we had to remove, as a secondary procedure, we had to remove a good part of the bone we had used for reconstruction.
Okay, sir. On follow-up, in Delaire's procedure, did you mean tracheal autotransplantation for laryngeal defects or an allotransplant for tracheal replacement?
No, it is a autotransplantation, tracheal autotransplantation. It's not an allotransplant.
Okay.
Delaire has described allotransplantation also without immunosuppression. So that was why the paper had a lot of relevance, and with a single case itself, it was published in New England Journal of Medicine with a lot of prominence. But this particular thing was about autotransplant.
Okay, sir. Same question, same person has repeated. What about mucociliary clearance in all these patients?
Mucociliary clearance, like in our experience, mucociliary clearance was not a significant issue. Because most of our procedures were like, even in Tamil, the tracheal mucosa is in continuity. When you are using a flap to reconstruct, only that area is affected. And regarding the aspiration part, the time patient takes to recover, we had 2 patients who had aspiration issues. One of them who could not be, who had to be on PEG feeds because of the aspiration issue. But generally, removing a small part, the function is preserved if you take care of the other anatomical parameters.
Okay, sir. Our next question is by Dr. Kumar Raja. How do you repair tracheal through and through traumatic disruption?
Tracheal through and through traumatic disruption. It's the same way, like, you should see the extent of tracheal defect. So, if the extent of cervical tracheal defect is within a reconstruct, within a limit where you can reconstruct, you have to assess it properly. And if you don't need to take anything, like if you don't need to really resect it, you open it and reconstruct it. If required, you can place a tracheostomy for some time, or a tracheal T-tube assistant. So you have to plan it accordingly. And if it's going, you have to involve your thoracic team members also to plan the reconstruction.
Okay, sir. Next question is, were there any reported tracheal necrosis in Tamil procedure? If it happens, how to salvage them?
Reported tracheal necrosis in which procedure?
Tamil procedure. TAMMIL. Tamil procedure.
Tamil procedure.
Yeah.
No. We don't have a big series. Because we felt that we should be taking only a patient who's clearly an indication for this, who will really be safe with that procedure. So in that particular patient, we didn't have any issue, and none of the patients which I described had an issue. We had one issue with a partial laryngectomy patient, where we reconstruct the tracheal, this cricoid ring with the costal cartilage, and we used a radial artery forearm flap for reconstruction. So the issue was like the part of flap necrosed, and the cartilage had to be removed, and the rest of the flap was intact, so that was left. So that was the only area where we had part of cartilage getting necrosed. That was cartilage from a distant site, not the native. Next.
Hello, sir. Are you able to hear?
Okay. Can we go to the next question?
Sir, your voice has broken, sir. Can you just repeat your last few sentences?
Bhargav, can you hear me?
Sir, it's still broken. Your voice is still breaking, sir.
Bhargav, am I audible?
No, sir, it's breaking, sir.
Yeah. Now I am able to hear. Yeah.
Sir, the last few sentences of your answer was broken. Can you just repeat them?
So we have never had an issue. See, we had a cartilage. So I don't know what to do about it. So what can I do?
Sir, your voice is breaking, sir.
We had an issue with native cartilage necrosis.
Hello? Hello, sir. Are you able to hear us? Listeners, sorry for that technical glitch. We are trying to fix it. Hello everyone. Sorry for that inconvenience. We're trying to fix it. Please bear with us for a few minutes. Hello, sir. Are you able to hear us?
Yes. Sorry for the technical issue. Bhargav, any more questions or?
Yes, sir. Just there is a problem with your transmission. I'm stopping your video.
Bhargav?
Yes, sir. Now we are able to hear you. Hello.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Our next question is,
Okay.
when can
Yeah, tell me, Bhargav, I can hear.
Yes, sir. Our next question by Dr. Abhimanyu is, when can the patient be decannulated after Tamil procedure?
Patient, see, the tracheostomy could be removed in 2 weeks' time, but the PEG tube we retained during the course of radiation, and patient, even after having oral feeds, he preferred to keep the PEG tube after radiation also.
Okay, sir. So what suture material do you use for
Bhargav?
Tamil procedure? Hello?
Bhargav, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
It's again an audio issue. Yeah.
Sir, we can hear you.
Yeah. We have used Prolene. Yeah, we have used Prolene for the cartilage sutures, but for all other sutures like mucosal sutures, everything we have used Vicryl. Absorbable sutures we have used.
Okay, sir. Next question is, any new insight in subglottic
Bhargav,
and
next
tracheal
question.
stenosis?
Bhargav,
early
I'm not able
predictors
to
of
hear.
stenosis.
Again, some audio issue.
Hello?
Yeah.
Are you able to hear us now, sir? Hello?
Okay.
Any new insights in subglottic and tracheal stenosis and early predictors of stenosis?
Yes. Yeah, subglottic and tracheal stenosis, I think we already discussed. We have already discussed about the
Hello?
yeah, like see, the tracheal resection reconstruction is the gold standard. It still remains the gold standard in difficult subglottic or tracheal restrictions. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Our next question is by Dr.
Bhargav,
Kuddesh Ahmed.
apart from what we have already discussed, I don't think there is anything new in that.
Okay, sir. Sir, can I go for next question? Hello?
Yeah.
Next question is by Dr. Kuddesh Ahmed. How do we address the neck in
Tell me,
tracheal
please.
tumors?
Yeah. There's a delay in. Yeah. Please tell me, Bhargav. Okay. Yeah, in tracheal tumors, we usually do it like we address the neck like a laryngeal tumor. We do bilateral neck dissection, selective neck dissection 2 to 4. Also, we have to address the level 6.
Okay, sir. Our next question is by Dr. Abhimanyu. Was blunt finger mobilization of trachea
Next question, Bhargav.
in mediastinum done in Tamil?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. We mobilized using blunt finger and even cold instruments, but very careful dissection using cold instruments and blunt mobilization. Both were done. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Our next question is by Dr. Akim Ahmad. How do we avoid healing by fibrosis leading to laryngotracheal stenosis post-operatively?
Bhargav? Yeah, yeah. See, it's important that you bring vascular areas together. Whatever is avascular, you have to remove and bring vascular areas together. So that is a way to bring them to avoid any avascular necrosis and fibrosis. That is the way to avoid fibrosis. So that's what I wanted to say. Yeah.
So the next question is, in recurrent subglottic carcinoma cases, how much of superior
If
margin
required,
could you
post-radiation
achieve?
scenario, you bring about a vascular flap. So these are the two ways you can avoid. Yeah. 6 millimeters. Like we aimed for 5 millimeters, minimum 5 millimeters. We got 6 millimeters margin. The minimum margin of 6 millimeters.
Okay, sir. Our next question is by Dr. Mohit Bagade. For advanced laryngeal cancer, in spite of total laryngectomy, can we go for recurrent chemoradiotherapy to avoid permanent stoma?
No, no, that is not possible. Or maybe, I mean, such a thing has never been described. And it doesn't look like a solution for that issue, for that problem. Yeah.
The next question is by Dr. Jamal Chu. Have you any experience to use a stent in tracheal stenosis, and what about the long-term outcome?
See, whenever we have not used most of the patients who come to me, like 95% of the patients who come to me are for malignancy, head and neck malignancies. So we have used stent in many of these laryngotracheal procedures. Some issues with the stent are like, see, patients usually have issues with secretions around the stent, and that foreign body sensation can be there due to the stent. So whenever you are putting a stent, like as early as possible, you can remove. You can just take a calculated call depending on the duration you want the stent to be there and the patient symptoms. So it's like when we are using it for the glottic area, there can be secretions collecting over the stent or around the stent, causing an issue. So stent is kept only for the minimum duration required.
Sir, so the last question is by Dr. Akim. How do we avoid healing by fibrosis leading to tracheal stenosis post-operatively?
Clearly, and you try to bring the vascular segments together. And in case you still have a vascularity issue, you can use a vascularized flap if the defect is large.
Sir, okay, sir. So those are the end of the questions here in our chat box. So with those words, let us take a leave. Thank you, sir, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you so much.